the Overman Warrior Podcast.
Hi, Trish Hoffman here. Had a really interesting visit to the Smithsonian recently, the Natural History Museum in Washington, D.C., where the Hope Diamond is. There's a lot of things interesting at the Smithsonian, and I will talk a lot about the politics of it. I like the Smithsonian. I like National Geographic. I like the British Museum. I like the Louvre. I like museums that are kind of become the caretakers of national sentiment. That doesn't mean that I agree with everything they do in them. I've famously had told the story many times about the argument I had with a curator at the British Museum over their display of the crystal skull they have there. And the belief that the crystal skull couldn't have been carved at the time, the dates that it proposed to have been found, whether it's 1100 AD or 100 BC or 1000 BC, or name your date. In deep antiquity, that such a skull couldn't have been carved until very recent history, last 200 or 300 years, because the rate of belief is that carving crystal like that could have happened until modern times, when in fact we've seen lots of technology rise and fall over vast periods of time in what we call the Vico cycle. And so the dates on the crystal skull, and the reason they think it's a fraud in the British Museum is because they have a belief at a timeline that doesn't hold up to true scientific scrutiny and the realities of discovery. But the belief systems are largely how we frame things in interesting ways, and behavior is quite interesting to observe outside what established scientists come up with. So even if a bunch of people at the Smithsonian came up with an idea and they validate that narrative, historic narrative, to support their investments into that narrative, that's on them. But you can see true human behavior if you're open enough to observe it for what it really represents. And so I notice a lot of that at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. And I think it's a fantastic museum. It's got a great collection of all kinds of good stuff. And I highly recommend anybody going there and seeing what it's all about. But when I see the kind of exhibits and the way they frame them, I often think of people who didn't quite develop their theories about origins with enough information. So there's a lot to talk about with the Smithsonian. But one thing that they do have there that I thought was extremely interesting to see was the display of the Hope Diamond. Largest diamond in the world, worth more than $300 million, and it's on display in their minerals, rare jewels section, which is extremely well put together. And they have the Hope Diamond, situated on a kind of rotating platform, and everybody gathers around to see it, to see it up close, because it's because of what it represents. The most valuable diamond in the world, and then we're talking about crystals again, a crystal skull, British Museum, and whether or not anybody in antiquity could have carved it to look like it, to give the details they did without ruining the quartz itself. Here you have the Hope Diamond, a very modern thing, but the largest diamond in the world, I think, now. And it's all carved up magnificently into what is on display there at the Smithsonian. And to watch everybody gather around it and think about it with the kind of value that they have for it is interesting. Because when you really get to the bare essence of what you give a diamond ring to, to your fiance, if you're a man, you're giving your woman a diamond ring because you're tapping into some ancient idea of, look, I have the power to give you a stable home, and I have this very valuable rock because back before we developed advanced economies, it was it was stone goods and precious metals that you traded to show that you could acquire security. And if you can get a woman of value to marry you, you would do that by showing her that you had the ability to acquire more than other competing rivals, rare metals and stones to bring a good economy to the household. So that's where this idea of large diamond rings for your fiance. You should marry me because I gave you a big rock. I have the means of upward mobility. I can make a lot of money. So you have a big rock to show off at all the parties you go to and the social engagements. And women are very proud to say, look how much he values me, this guy. He doesn't just want me for a sexual bedmate. He wants to really invest in me. So look at my big ring. And that's kind of how, that's why this Hope Diamond is so fascinating to people at the Smithsonian. It's the largest diamond in the world. There's a lot of people there like, man, I spent $10,000 on the engagement ring for my wife, or $20,000 to give her this big thing, because I really want people to be impressed by how much income potential I have. And that is represented through my wife, my spouse. And we went to a dinner party and people saw how big a rock was, how big a ring was, and they know that I'm a powerful man. And that's one way that you can convey to society in general that you have power, that you have the ability to bring over mobility to your family, because that's how we judge it as a society. So the Hope Diamond, everybody gathered around it, and it was one of the most popular exhibits at all the Smithsonian. And it was interesting to hear people talk about how valuable it is and to fantasize about possessing it and owning it. And I know a few people that have recently bought engagement rings, and they paid a lot of money for them because you want to let your spouse know, or your potential spouse know, that you're willing to spend a lot of money on them because you value them as people. And it goes back to this ancient idea of what a rock is, and that you can acquire currency and show that currency off to competitors to let them know that she's out of your league because she's got a giant rock. Well, my wife said one of the nicest things, and again, we've been married for 38, 39 years, a very long time, and we were there and we're looking at the diamond kind of perplexed, because when you've been married that long, you tend to have different, your value system adapts to what really truly matters, not what's superficial. When you're first getting married, you're very insecure because especially if it's a pretty woman, and it's specifically, women are on defense, men are on offense. It's a man's job to find a woman and to get her to do a pairing with him for the right to procreate and do all kinds of stuff, building families, and that's the basic essence of it. So men are on offense, females are on defense. They have to decide if every sweet word that's put in their direction from potential suitors is going to advance them in some way and let them build a family. So they have different roles in this whole process. So when a man goes out and buys a very fancy diamond ring for his potential spouse, there's a lot of insecurity because there's a lot of suitors trying to win her over, especially if she's attractive or something that is considered to be a great catch. For men, it's a real competition, and you want to have that big diamond ring so that you can let other people know that they're not going to be in her league. So it's a way of fending off rivals. So you could see people around the Hope Diamond thinking about their own life and how that would help them. If they could have that big diamond, they could let everybody know that they are superior to everybody else and they deserve to have that particular spouse, especially if it's one of great value. Well, my wife told me, and this is just us talking and commenting to each other about it, the engagement ring I gave her, which became her wedding ring, which we've had since she was 19 years old, earlier than that, because I gave it to her when she was 18. By the time we were married, when she was 19, it was just a little diamond, well cut. But when I bought it, I bought the ring that a 19-year-old person could buy at the time, and I think it was $250. And I think it's a nice diamond. But compared to other people, it's a small diamond, little, very thin gold band that goes around, and she's wore it all these years. And again, 30, almost 40, we'll be on 40 years soon enough. And more than that, even. And she said that she wouldn't trade. She told me, I mean, this was totally unsolicited, but she told me she would never trade her ring for that Hope Diamond. And if she says that, she's saying what everybody else has been thinking. They're comparing that Hope Diamond to their own lives, and where does it place on the scale of value? And what my wife said to me was that she valued the little diamond, the little ring that she got, because under the conditions that we bought it, it had a lot more value because there was a lot more going on. It was a lot of risk, a lot of hardship on all of our parts to make a commitment like that early in life, and to have that little diamond represent what that is. And she still wears it, and people kind of look at her kind of funny. Why aren't you guys upgraded? You know, you're been around a long time. You raise your kids. You know, you have some income. Why didn't you go get a bigger ring so you can impress everybody else? And our goal is never to impress anybody else. It's always been, what's it mean to us? Because that's ultimately what it's supposed to be anyway. And that's where the real value is. And going back to the Smithsonian and how you measure things, how you measure value, how you measure climate change, the politics of human development, everybody might get it wrong because they had the wrong assumptions. But to have things like the Hope Diamond on display provokes good discussions. It also reveals a lot about what humans do and think and why they think it. But then I was quite impressed with my wife when she said that her little diamond ring that I bought her when she was 19 years old, small as it is, a little bitty band, it's been through everything. We've done things all over the world, and it's always been there. It's always held up, and it probably always will, I'm sure. But that has more value because of the experiences and the dedication for which it was purchased, rather than what it says as a social context. And that ultimately a successful marriage works when the partnership between the two parties is inward and within the household, and not meant to project strength and unity to outsiders, because outsiders never truly give you what you're looking for. They might be jealous of the big ring. They might be jealous of the attractiveness of your spouse. They may be jealous of the car you drive. And that might make you feel good, like all the hard work you've done in life is worth doing. To have people have rivals envy you for a short time, even if they're always plotting your demise. Ultimately, if you want a long, steady marriage, you typically want to make commitments that mean more than the value of the diamond itself. And as I was thinking about the $300 million plus value of that Hope Diamond, to me, it wasn't very much money, because $300 million sounds like a lot of money for a rock, a very large diamond, one of the largest in the world. That might be a lot, but $300 million really isn't much in the scheme of things. And for the amount of hoopla that it created, for the potential thieves who would conjure up ideas or fantasies of stealing it, or the women who would think of making some kind of big giant ring out of it to show all their girlfriends how much their husband loves them, they all miss the point. Because I think ultimately, if you want to have a long marriage and you really want it to be real, you want your wife to say something like what mine did when they see the Hope Diamond. I would not trade my diamond for that one, because of what it took to get that little diamond to begin with. Had much more value than the $300 million that the Hope Diamond was worth. And I think that's the circumstances, those kinds of things are different for everybody. For my wife, obviously, be different than our neighbor or our friends, or someone down the road shopping at Walmart. Everybody has a different value perspective, but I think ultimately, when you've had many decades together and you've raised families and fought through all the hard stuff, you want your wife, when she's standing in front of the Hope Diamond, to turn to you and say, if I had the opportunity to trade this one for that one, I would never do it. And that's pretty good. And it was a good visit to the Smithsonian, and I'm glad they had the Hope Diamond on exhibit. There was a lot of really great precious metals that were on display there, that just a wonderful collection, and it provoked a lot of discussion. And we really enjoyed our visit. Even if we don't agree with every little bit of the politics of the museum presentation itself, that wouldn't be the first for me. I've been to museums everywhere, and everybody has their take, and you have your opinion based on your lived experience, and it's good for debate, so all those lived experiences can hash out the truth of reality. But it starts with great displays, and the Hope Diamond being on display at the Smithsonian was great in that it provoked wonderful discussions with everybody who was there to see it. But thinking about good marriages and what a wife is supposed to think about the engagement ring that she's given by her husband or potential husband is exactly what my wife had said. And she wasn't just telling me that. I didn't solicit the comment. That was just her statement. I would never trade the ring I have for that one for any amount of money, because the experiences that you build a life with somebody you pick to build a family with, infinitely has much more power and value than the dollars that are on some precious metal, and the acquisition of it and what it says socially in obtaining it. At some point, if you truly want something of value to work in the construction of a relationship, it has to transcend social judgments. And when you've done that, you have something that's worth a whole lot more than the Hope Diamond. Just a little perspective. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.
Thank you for listening. Coming soon, The Politics of Heaven.